Who will survive, and what will be left of them? That tagline from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre has been etched in my mind for many, many years. It's easily one of the most memorable ones around. Tobe Hooper's monumental movie is one of the most notorious and controversial horror films and films ever made. All the hype about how horrific the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was, how nasty the movie was, definitely got my attention. I remember for years wanting to see this movie, but it took me a long while to see this movie. I've known about this film since I was a small child, but I didn't get a chance to finally see it until I was well into my teens. I rented it from a video store. I was all hyped up to see this movie. This movie that people were saying it was just some of the worst, most disgusting stuff to be ever put onto screen, and I believed it. I believed it was gonna be a really horrifying experience because I had saw the sequel, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 first, a few years earlier, and that film definitely lived up to the hype of just being a really nasty movie in all kinds of ways. So there's no way that this movie, which had even a bigger reputation for being like true grindhouse, icky horror, there's just no way that the expectation was not going to be met. And I was going to be in store for another, grand guignol, experience, for the ages. And by the time I finished watching the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I was underwhelmed and disappointed in a way. In terms of the movie itself, I thought it was a simple but strong story. That the acting was on point, the direction was on point, everything was on point and exceptionally put together. But the one area where I found it really to be lacking was in terms of the horror, specifically, the gross out horror, the really like nasty, icky type of horror that everyone from like film critics to fans to the media was saying that this film was the type of movie that would get banned in countries. The film is pretty short when it comes to gore. There's barely any blood shed on screen, and I remember being profoundly disappointed by that. Like, there's barely any blood. There's barely any gore. Like, I thought I was cheated. Like, in regards to that aspect, everything else, I thought the film was, great. I particularly loved that ending, of the movie, especially that moment where like Sally, she's like broken out of the house of the Sawyers. At the time, they weren't called the Sawyers, but the family, the cannibalistic family, and she breaks out the last moment. She runs to the road, being chased by the hitchhiker. The hitchhiker gets his. This truck comes up, and the driver comes out to help her, and they're both running from Leatherface, and then the driver, he has this huge wrench in his hand, and the way he just flings it at Leatherface and just hits him right in the head. I don't know, I just absolutely love that moment. I just love the whole ending. Like, the ending is an all-timer, but yeah, but going back to the whole gore thing, it took me a while to get over that. Like, man, like, I just felt like I was lied to. This film isn't all that nasty, it's just, I mean, it's horrific, the things that happens to the characters, Sally and her friends, the things that Leatherface and his family does, the fact that Leatherface is still on the loose at the end. So is the cook in the movie. The character's called the cook, who's actually Drayton Sawyer. He's given that name in the sequel, part two. But yeah, it took me a while to get over that. But eventually I did. Eventually I did get over that fact. And it isn't the fault of the movie. It's not like Tobe Hooper was saying, oh, this is like one of the most grisly, grotesque things you'll ever watch. It was the media that did that. In fact, Toby Hooper has gone on record to say that he thinks that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a black comedy. And I'm like, how? Like, it has, you know, dark comedic moments, but there's certainly no black comedy. I can even see it in a way as a satire to a degree, in a way that like Dawn of the Dead was George Romero's original. But if you're talking about like a full blown black comedy, no. Like you can say that about the sequel, his sequel. But yeah, no. This is first and foremost a horror film, no question about that. Even without being drowned in blood. And yeah, and over the years, watching it over and over again, I've seen the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre a lot. It is a true horror film. It is a harrowing experience, an excruciating experience, and yeah, what it lacks in blood, it more than makes up for in brutality, more than makes up for intensity. Like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like once it gets going, because it takes a while to get revved up, because Toby Hooper smartly, takes a while to build up, the characters and the situation and everything. But once everything gets set into motion, the horror is triggered. It is nonstop. It is nonstop, just boom, 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 boom. Even in the more quieter moments, once the horror gets going, it's still super intense. And I love that about the film. It's one of the most intense films ever made. Like it's just, it's unrelenting and unyielding, and how intense and brutal and pulverizing this film is. And that's why I love it so much. That's why I think it's one of the ultimate examples of horror, of on-screen horror, and is more than deserving of all the acclaim and accolades and the legendary status that it has attained over the decades. This film is an undeniable masterpiece, and it is Toby Hooper's crown jewel in his diverse, daring, and bold and brilliant body of work. The performances in this movie are powerful. Marilyn Burns is absolutely one of the all-time best final girls as Sally. She is just amazing in this movie, and the things she had to do in this movie, like that whole dinner sequence, like the amount of screaming she had to do, the amount of hell they put her through, that character, like having to act that out is just really, really, really impressive. Gunnar Hansen delivers one of the greatest on-screen antagonists of all time, like as Leatherface, like and I say antagonist instead of bad guy, because Leatherface, at least in the first movie, is not a bad guy. Like, he does bad things, but he's not a bad guy in a typical sense that he's malicious and all that. Like, he doesn't know truly what he's doing. It's clear that he's under the foot of his family, being forced to do things or coerced to do things. Like, that's not to say that he may not, at some level, know that, he's doing something that's really wrong, like murder and cannibalism and all that other stuff. But it's clear that he's not truly comprehending his actions and the weight that his actions have. But Gunnar Hansen, like, he just delivers an immortal performance here as Leatherface. Jim Seidel also delivers an all-time great performance as a bad guy, as the cook. And the cook, also known as Drayton Sawyer, he's also he is one of the most underrated, like, on-screen horror bad guys. When people make lists of, like, greatest horror bad guys of all time, Jim Seidel's the cook definitely deserves to be on that list. He is so scummy in this film. He's just a really, really terrible guy, but also, like, complicated too. Like, you have the one scene where he's like at the table and he's like, I just take no pleasure in killing. Like, you facilitated all these murders, these horrible, grotesque murders. You facilitated in the cannibalism, participate in the cannibalism, and have done some killing himself, no doubt. But yeah, it sounds like he's, like, really sincere. Like, he doesn't take no pleasure in killing. He wants to get, like, the killing of Sally over with, which he ultimately fails in doing. But it's also clear that he's also enjoying, clearly, like being all gleeful about the suffering Sally is going through, or when he goes ahead and pokes her multiple times with the broom handle, or when he was beating her with the broom handle. Like, he's a really messed up guy, terrible, but he's also kind of complicated in a certain way. But yeah, Jim Saito, he's great in this movie. Edwin Neal is also great in this movie. Another underrated, great horror bad guy. He plays the hitchhiker in this film, and he is just so unhinged. Like, he is so unsettling. One of the best portrayals I've seen, like, of just a horror character or any character that is just truly off their rocker. Like, he definitely makes your skin crawl. Like, I don't know. Only the horror movies where, people make really stupid mistakes. Like, the moment I saw the hitchhiker, like, I'm like, nah, nah, we're passing. Like, keep moving this vehicle. We are not picking up that guy. Like, he clearly spells trouble with a capital T. And Edwin Neal just played his character perfectly. The other actors in this movie, they delivered great performances as well. This movie is just another movie where everything is just perfect. The cinematography by Daniel Pearl. This is one of the best films ever lensed. Like, this film is just so grimy, so grungy, but at times, sparingly, it's also breathtaking to look at. These shots, of course, that famous shot, the shot I'm talking about in this film, that is just, cinematic immortality. Like, the music in this film, every aspect of this film is brilliant. And it was all done on a low budget as well. And of course, the ending of this film is one of my favorite endings of all time. The chainsaw dance at the end with Leatherface is, yeah, just can't get enough of that. Like, in terms of being a gore-soaked, nasty, notorious film, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre did not live up to the hype, to me. But ultimately, it did something even better and more than lived up to the hype of being simply one of the greatest horror films to ever be unleashed.